Today on the Matt Walsh Show, we're now being told that there's nothing to see here with Jeffrey Epstein, no client list, no other culprits, and he did kill himself. We'll sort through the latest on this story, and I'll explain why I don't buy the official narrative for even a second. Also, bureaucrats weep and wail in the street as relatively minor layoffs hit the State Department. A woke DA drops all charges against a registered sex offender who attempted to kidnap a child from a playground. And Chip and Joanna Gaines produce a new show that features a gay couple with children. We'll talk about all that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote human flourishing and create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself to glorify God. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs as of September 2024, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University, private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Well, it was inevitable that after returning from a 2-week vacation, I would discover that I had missed a lot of major news stories and outrage cycles. That comes with the territory when you go offline for any significant period of time. What I didn't expect was to come back and feel like someone who had been in a coma for the past 5 years, only to awaken and realize that the world is apparently a very, very different place than I thought it was and than I remember it being. I didn't expect that some of the most basic facts that we all took for granted, things that no serious person would dispute, would suddenly become the stuff of quote-unquote conspiracy theories, all in the span of just 14 days or so. But indeed, more or less, that's what happened. As I returned from vacation the other day, quite unexpectedly, I learned that Jeffrey Epstein was not, in fact, an international sex trafficker, even though he was arrested for being one and his closest associate was convicted for trafficking children. I also learned that there is no Jeffrey Epstein client list, even though the Attorney General said she had one on her desk. Additionally, I discovered that Jeffrey Epstein did indeed kill himself, even though the video supposedly proving this point was edited multiple times and omits an entire minute for no apparent reason. And furthermore, I learned that no prominent or powerful people were implicated in Jeffrey Epstein's underage trafficking operation in any way, even though dozens of them flew on his plane to his creepy sex island. And on top of that, I was informed that the whole issue doesn't matter and that it's weird to care about any of this, and we should all just move on and discuss far more important topics, even though literally all of the people now saying that it doesn't matter, all agreed that it did matter as recently as 2 weeks ago. Now, this is the kind of inexplicable and shameless pivot that the left historically specializes in service of their ideology without even a hint of hesitation. Leftists will eagerly denounce the very same facts and ideas that they were parroting just 5 seconds earlier, and they see no problem with it. They'll tell you, for example, my body, my choice, and then turn around and destroy your life if you don't get an experimental shot. They'll tell you Russia isn't a threat and that Mitt Romney needs to stop being so paranoid about Putin. Then the moment Donald Trump wins an election, they'll insist that hackers in the Kremlin are capable of mind controlling millions of voters. They'll explain that only women can have opinions on abortion. Then they'll tell you that actually, well, men and women are the same thing, and on and on and on. Hypocrisy isn't really the right word for this kind of behavior. That doesn't quite capture it. This is zealotry. This is people who are willing to suspend reality along with their own common sense because they believe it will benefit them politically. So in order to remain a viable political movement, and in order to appeal to sane voters who remain a slim majority in this country, conservatives have to reject this mode of thought or lack thereof. We cannot blindly follow commands that contradict everything we've been told and everything we've observed for many years. Practically and morally and politically, it's wrong. And yet, when it comes to Epstein, it has been people on the right engaging in this kind of behavior. So Let's talk about Epstein and what this administration has been saying about him and what they're saying now and what kind of sense we can make of all of this. So let's go back to begin with, to February 21st, which you've probably seen this clip replayed, but we'll play it again, in which the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, was asked directly about Epstein's client list. Watch.
Yeah, I saw your appearance at CPAC with Ben and with Ted Cruz. And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
It's sitting on her desk right now. What's sitting on her desk? Well, the Epstein client list. She says that specifically. She does not say that this list might be out there somewhere. She doesn't say that she's still looking for the list. She doesn't say that she sent Indiana Jones out on a mission to find the list deep in a cave in the jungle somewhere. No, she says it is sitting on her desk at that present moment in February of this year. Now, less than a week later, on February 26th, Bondi was back on Fox, and this time she was there to explain that she was about to release flight logs and other information about Epstein. She also said that Epstein had hundreds of victims, that the DOJ has been slow to release information only because it wants to protect the privacy of those victims.
A lot of people are wondering, because you said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk, is when can we see them and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
Yeah, what you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. But it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay, well,
along with his co-defendant.
Absolutely, and he had help. That's for sure.
He sure did.
So tomorrow, she says, you're going to see a lot of names tomorrow, along with lots of other information. But, that was back in February, and tomorrow has long since come and gone from the perspective of February. So what happened with all those names that she explicitly on camera promised? Well, nothing. There were no names released. There had never been any names released related to Jeffrey Epstein, except Ghislaine Maxwell. Instead, several influencers, as you may recall, were invited to the White House and handed large binders entitled The Epstein Files Phase 1. And they had reporters ready outside, ready to take pictures of the influencers triumphantly emerging from the White House, holding the binders as they exited. It was obviously a coordinated stunt. They made a big show of releasing the files, or at least phase 1 of the files. But within a few hours, it became clear that the binders didn't contain any new information at all. Everything in the binders had been published before. So they didn't actually release anything. And this development posed an obvious problem for Pam Bondi's credibility. She had not told Jesse Waters that the DOJ was about to release old information that everyone already had access to. She had not promised to repackage previously released documents in a fancy new binder. I didn't hear that part of her Jesse Waters interview, did you? Did you hear her say, well, Jesse, we actually don't have any new information about Epstein, but what we do have are some fun new binders. No, instead she said that she had breaking news that would make people sick. And she specifically told John Roberts and the audience at CPAC that the information related to the names of Epstein's clients. But none of that materialized. So instead, on February 28th, Bondi sent a letter to the FBI Director Kash Patel. Put that up on the screen there. And essentially, Bondi claimed that the FBI had thousands more documents in its possession. She demanded the FBI turn over those documents. And then in early March, the head of the FBI's New York field office was forced to resign after Bondi accused him of withholding the documents. But around the same time, she said that the FBI had finally produced the documents. And here's what she told Sean Hannity on March 3rd, quote, "I gave the FBI a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source has told me where the documents were being kept, Southern District of New York. So we got them all by Friday at 8 a.m. Thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Director Patel is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all those documents," close quote. For the next several weeks, Bondi would repeat variations of this statement. She would claim over and over again that the DOJ had received truckloads of new documents. She also said the DOJ possessed, quote, "tens of thousands of videos involving Epstein," videos that were never referenced in any of the previous Epstein cases. At a minimum, after all of this, you would expect some form of accounting from the Attorney General and the DOJ about what exactly is contained within these truckloads of documents. And given that tens of thousands of videos are involved, and Epstein was clearly involved in sex trafficking, which is why he was in prison in the first place, presumably a lot of people are implicated in these videos. A lot of other people, aside from Epstein himself. That's especially true since Bondi was explicitly asked about a client list and stated directly that the list existed and she had it in her possession. But instead of any explanation whatsoever, instead of any form of transparency to make sense of all of this, we instead got a memo from the DOJ and the FBI explaining that, this was last week, explaining that after reviewing all the new information, there actually was no new information. There was no client list. No one else is implicated. Epstein did kill himself, and there's nothing else to report on the subject. That's it. It's over. And then we were treated to this performance in the White House. Watch.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
There's simply no getting around the massive crater-like hole that the administration dug for itself here. Let's assume that everything Pam Bondi says in that clip is true, which I don't believe it is. She still hasn't explained why the DOJ released phase 1 of the Epstein files, implying that there are more coming. Phase 1 means there's a phase 2, at least. And keep in mind, that was before she allegedly discovered that the FBI was hiding truckloads of additional documents. They had already contemplated a phase 2, and then they got a truckload of more documents. And instead of getting a phase 2, we're told that, oh no, phase 1 was it. So what's going on here? What's in those phase 2 documents that we were promised? And more to the point, how exactly is it remotely plausible that Jeffrey Epstein could have possessed tens of thousands of explicit videos without implicating a single other individual? Now, here's what the DOJ could do right now. They could unseal all of the relevant search warrants and affidavits for the raids on Epstein's properties. They could unseal and unredact all of Epstein's financial disclosures. They could also explain document by document what was in those truckloads of files they just recovered at the FBI. Even if it's irrelevant, they can explain why it's irrelevant. They could at least do that to begin with, and instead they're not doing any of it. They're just telling us to shut up, essentially. And it's not a particularly convincing effort. You know, at the end of that clip, Bondi didn't even respond when she was asked whether Epstein was an intelligence asset. She said that she would have to get back to us on that. This has been the go-to response to bury this question in Washington for many years. It's been the go-to response about everything Epstein related. Oh, we'll get back to you on that. Oh, we'll let you know. Rather than say yes or no, they evade in the most suspicious and incriminating way possible. And back during the first Trump administration, Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney who handled the Epstein case, basically did the same thing. Instead of addressing the question directly, he stalled, which of course basically confirms that indeed it is true that, as the Daily Beast first reported, Epstein, quote, belonged to intelligence. Watch.
One more question.
Richard Lardner from the Associated Press. Mr. Secretary, were you ever made aware at any point in your handling of this case if Mr. Epstein was an intelligence asset of some sort?
So there has been reporting to that effect, and let me say there's been reporting to a lot of effects in this case, not just now but over the years, and again, I would hesitate to take this reporting as fact. This was a case that was brought by our office. It was brought based on the facts. And I look at that reporting and others. I can't address it directly because of our guidelines. But I can tell you that a lot of reporting is just going down rabbit holes. A few more questions.
So, look, there are, I'm afraid, only two possible scenarios to make sense of all of this. And as a Trump supporter myself and a big fan of much of what this president has done so far this term, I don't relish having to say this, but I will always shoot you straight and tell you exactly what I think. So here are the two and only two options. Okay. And unfortunately, there just is no option that allows you to just, vindicate the Trump administration entirely and say, well, there's no funny business going on here. That option doesn't exist right now. So option one is that the Trump administration played into the Epstein, quote unquote, conspiracy theories, knowing they were false until the moment when it no longer benefited them to do so. They were drumming up Epstein conspiracies before the election. And then once they took power, they didn't know what to do. So they lied about having possession of a client list, knowing they actually didn't have possession of it, strung everybody along for a while until they finally dropped the pretense. That's one option. Okay. That's one theory of the case. The second is that the quote unquote conspiracy theories are true. And now this administration is, for one reason or another, participating in the cover-up. There is no door number 3 here because the Attorney General is on the record saying, I have the client list. So those are the only two ways to make sense of that. Those are the two possibilities. Again, I don't enjoy it. It doesn't make me happy. I don't relish this. It's just the way it is. And it's not a good situation either way. And either way, Pam Bondi needs to go at a minimum. She either lied and said she had the client list on her desk when she didn't, or she's lying now and saying she doesn't have the list when she does. Again, there's no third option. She's lying either way. You can't get around it. And we can't have an attorney general who lies to us about something as important as this. Now, personally, I don't know the full truth about Epstein, and And now I seriously doubt that any of us will ever know. But I do certainly believe that he was a global sex trafficker with high-profile clientele. I mean, that was pretty much unanimously agreed upon until 10 seconds ago by everybody. It's also the reason he went to prison. It's why Maxwell is currently in prison. I also don't for a second believe that he killed himself. And an apparently edited surveillance video from outside of the prison cell is not nearly enough to convince me otherwise. It shouldn't be enough to convince anyone of anything. Okay, they put a video out that is not evidence of anything. Now, at the moment, if we're going to get any transparency, it's probably not coming from Pam Bondi's DOJ. Instead, it's likely to come from Epstein's closest associate, convicted child sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. Late last night, the Daily Mail reported, quote, Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, is ready to reveal truth of the pedophile client list, says insiders. Ghislaine Maxwell is willing to speak in front of Congress about the Epstein files. Now, a source said, despite the rumors, Ghislaine Maxwell was never offered any kind of plea deal. She would be more than happy to sit before Congress and tell her story. No one from the government has ever asked her to share what she knows. She remains the only person to be jailed in connection to Epstein, and she would welcome the chance to tell the American public the truth, close quote. Now, of course, we have no idea what information, if any, this sociopath, this evil woman will ultimately reveal. But the fact remains that, especially after the humiliating display by Bondi and the DOJ we've all just witnessed, it's probably worth listening to Maxwell's testimony. If a client list exists at this point, she's the most likely person to tell us. Now, yes, it's an indictment of Pam Bondi and the DOJ that we see any reason to listen to a ghoul like this, but that's where we are. Millions of Americans are not satisfied with what we've been told. And we shouldn't be, because it's been contradictory and insulting to our intelligence every step of the way. So now we're looking elsewhere. This is what happens when people are deceived and strung along for years, only to be told that they're not entitled to any kind of transparency whatsoever. People are not just going to move on with their lives, no matter how badly you want them to. And there's a reason for that. And I want to make this very clear to those on the right, including the president himself, who are telling us to just drop the subject and move on. We can't drop it. We can't move on, because what we want is justice. We have a deep desire for justice. And we can see how the corrupt and the powerful are never held accountable. We can look at our cities and see violent criminals running rampant in the streets, also not held accountable. We want these evildoers to be punished. We want the innocent to be defended. We want justice. It's one of the most basic and most honorable of all human desires. We want to see that justice is done. We want to know who else was in those awful videos that Pam Bondi told us about. And we want those people to be dragged in front of us, weeping and begging for mercy. We want them exposed and humiliated and shamed and punished in the harshest and most painful way, because that's justice. And we're not going to drop the subject until we get it. So unseal everything, including the search warrants and the financial disclosures. Tell us what exactly was in those truckloads of documents that you recovered in New York. Show us the phase 2 Epstein files that you told us about just a few months ago. In other words, don't give us any more excuses from bureaucrats on Fox News. Don't give us any more stonewalling and doublespeak. We've seen more than enough of that in this case and so many others. Instead, for a change, give us something we're not used to seeing from the federal government and the DOJ. Give us justice. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. You know what's fascinating? When your metabolism is working properly, you feel the benefits in literally every aspect of your life. I've discovered an incredible tool that gives me insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. It's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It measures your metabolism through your breath, and the app tells you if you're burning fat or carbs, then provides personalized guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. Using it couldn't be simpler. I breathe into my Lumen first thing in the morning to understand my metabolism and get personalized nutrition planned for the day. I can also check back before and after workouts and meals to know exactly what's happening in my body in real time. Here's why this matters. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns food into fuel. When it's optimized, you'll experience better energy levels, improved fitness results, and even better sleep. Lumen gives you all the recommendations you need to improve your metabolic health, helping you to make informed decisions about your nutrition and lifestyle. The warmer months are here. Spring back into your health and fitness. Go to lumen.me/Walsh to get 10% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Walsh for 10% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. You know, I was shocked to learn that the liver is actually the second largest organ in your body and handles over 500 different functions that we barely even think about it. Here's the thing, though. Over 30% of Americans have a sluggish liver, and most of us don't even know until it's too late. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Dose for Your Liver. This isn't just another supplement. It's a science-backed formula that was specifically created to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements while supporting digestion and keeping your body's natural filter running smoothly. That's what really impressed me, and it was all the clinical results. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, Dose for Your Liver actually lowered liver enzyme levels by 50% in over 86% of participants. And get this, one shot is equivalent to 17 shots of turmeric juice. When you stick with Dose over time, you can experience some incredible benefits: more energy, better digestion, reduced bloating, healthier liver enzyme function, less brain fog, and even better sleep. Plus, it's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and vegan. Save 25% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/Walsh or entering Walsh at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/Walsh for 25% off your first month subscription. All right, the New York Post reports the State Department on Friday began terminating more than 1,300 positions as part of the Trump administration's effort to trim the size of the federal workforce. The layoffs will affect 1,107 civil servants and 246 foreign service officers with assignments in the U.S. Employees began receiving termination notices in the morning, informing them that their positions were being abolished. And by afternoon, several laid-off staffers were spotted tearfully departing the State Department's headquarters. They were met by a crowd of clapping supporters outside the Harry S. Truman building near the White House. And this is all part of the cuts. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the cuts will make the diplomatic department more efficient and more focused. Now, you know, there isn't much of a story here. Well, there's a good story. There's good news. Bureaucrats at the State Department are getting laid off. That's great. Great news. A little disappointing because I'd prefer that rather than lay them off, that they would all be escorted into a giant SpaceX rocket and launched directly into outer space. So that's what, I mean, that's the policy I would prefer, but I'll take the layoffs if that's all we can get. So it is good news, but not much more to say about it than that. You would think that is until you see the hysterics, the performance from these bureaucrats who did not take the layoffs with poise and dignity. They did not comport themselves in an honorable and respectable way, of course. Instead, they treated this like a national catastrophe, a catastrophe of indeed global proportions. So Reuters was on the scene. The whole media was there for this whole scene, and of course, the media also is part of this, treating it like this disaster, this great tragedy. And let's watch some of the footage of these State Department workers as they're leaving the building, distraught. Here it is.
That's why.
This is devastating. This is also self-sabotage, pulling people back from the front lines when we really need them the most. Now that we have the tensions in the Middle East, ascendant China, and aggressive Russia, what are we doing pulling back the people who know how to deal with these tensions in the world?
And to those that have been riffed, to those that have been fired today, I just want to say I'm sorry.
So they're shaking, they're crying, they're clapping for themselves, they're giving speeches into megaphones. You know, that's the whole scene. I mean, just look at this picture. This is from the New York Post article that I just read from, and this is the top picture. And you have two people embracing, a woman breaking down in tears, inconsolable. Okay, this is not someone with one dignified tear streaming down the cheek. Not that any tear can be dignified, but this is not someone with just one tear. This is full-on hysterical crying. And she's being embraced by this other guy. Now you look at that picture, take out the people that are clapping in the background and focus on just this sad sight in the foreground. And if you look at that, it literally looks like a scene outside of a school shooting, right? And I'm not even trying to be funny. If I showed you those two people and I asked you to guess what was going on here, you would guess that there was a school shooting and that this is the scene in the parking lot. I mean, we've seen scenes just like that, almost that exact photo we've seen, unfortunately, countless times in the parking lots of schools when there's a school shooting. And so the point is, you would think that something horrifically tragic had happened. You would think that people died, children died. And instead, what actually happened is that a few bureaucrats lost their job. And yes, it is a few. Because 1,300 as a total, well, that's out of 80,000 State Department employees. So that's what, like 1 or 2% of the workforce. Now, layoffs like this happen every day in the private sector. Okay, companies will wipe out 5%, 10%, 20% of their workforce. And when that happens, you never see any of these theatrics. Nobody's breaking down in tears in the street. There's no line of people applauding them. There's no speeches in the megaphones. There's no outraged headlines. I mean, rarely are there any outraged headlines. Reuters is not on the scene filming everything. You only get this when government employees are let go, which, of course, is an argument for letting more of them go because these people are useless, self-important, self-aggrandizing, self-pitying, obnoxious, and we need to fire way more of them. And by the way, if you work in the government, if you work in the federal government and you wonder why people hate you so much, well, this is why. Okay, it's this exact thing that I just explained. Okay, it's that people there are layoffs in the private sector every single day and you don't care about them, right? You're not weeping over that. You're not expecting anyone to weep over it. It's only when you get let go, you expect the entire country to stop and mourn and put the flags at half-mast and treat it like there was a hurricane, right? And 600 people died. Okay, that's why people hate you. It's for that reason. And the fact that you're listening to me right now and still going, what's the problem? I don't get it. But yeah, well, right. But why is that? Yes, exactly that. That you actually think that you are, that you're in this different class and that you're entitled to your job, that you have a right to it, and that like the well-being of the entire globe rests on your shoulders. That you think that, when in reality, the vast majority of you who work in the federal government are useless, are totally useless. You could evaporate. You could be whisked away. You could be raptured up. You could disappear, right? 80% of you, and no one would ever notice. So that's the reality. And that's why people can't stand you. And we haven't even gotten to the best part yet. So here's what the inside of the building looked like when this was all happening. Check this out. You can see employees put up these little notes, these posters, as a tribute to their fallen comrades. And the notes say, "Thank you for your service. Your work left an impact." But it appears that the posters were written in crayon. Each letter is a different color, taped to the wall. And as many people have pointed out on social media, this looks like a preschool. This is the kind of thing you would expect to see in a kindergarten classroom. This is what you expect to see on the walls when they do a stupid kindergarten graduation, because these days there's a graduation ceremony for every grade. This is what you expect to see, right? "We'll miss you. Great job." It's like all the kids did all year was take naps and play with Play-Doh, which is also basically what State Department employees are doing. They're taking naps and playing with Play-Doh. I mean, effectively. And so some grown adult, a person on a tax-funded salary, sat down with colored pencils and a poster board and wrote these messages using a different color for each letter. I don't know why, like that detail in particular is just sticks out to me. There's something about it seems small, but because that's what a child does. That is what, if my 5-year-old daughter sat down to make a poster, that's what she would do. She's like, that's how you make the poster pretty. If you're a 5-year-old girl, is every letter, look, Daddy, every letter is a different color. And this was like a 47-year-old woman, right, who's been on a tax-funded salary for 25 years. And that's what she was doing with her time. It's humiliating. So we have a government overrun by egomaniacs who have the maturity and intelligence of children. And so that's what it tells you. And that's why so many more need to be fired. And it's why, I generally am not happy to see people lose their jobs. But in this case, yeah, I'm happy. I am so happy. You deserve to lose your jobs. You are useless. You are leeches. You're parasites who have just been bilking this country of billions of dollars every single year, contributing absolutely nothing. And so you deserve your lose jobs. I'm very happy that you did. All right. Here's another story for her. There's an image that goes along with it. There's another image. I'll show you the image in a moment, but here's the Fox News report. It says prosecutors in Colorado plan to drop charges against a registered sex offender accused of trying to kidnap a child from an elementary school because he was found incompetent to stand trial. The 18th Judicial District Attorney's Office, which covers Arapahoe County, includes Aurora and Littleton, informed Fox 31 on Friday that it intends to dismiss charges against Solomon Galligan. The 33-year-old faces one count of attempted kidnapping after he allegedly tried to take an 11-year-old boy during recess at Black Forest Hills Elementary School in April of 2024. Aurora police previously reported that Galligan is a registered sex offender, and he underwent a mental competency evaluation that determined he was unfit to stand trial. As a result, prosecutors claim they have no choice but to drop the charges. Okay, so this is a registered sex offender who attempted to abduct a child, that is not in dispute, by the way. It's on video. There's actually surveillance video of this guy walking up and trying to take a child. So there's the fact that it happened is beyond dispute. But charges are being dropped, meaning that this guy will be released back into society. Zero punishment, zero consequences. Okay. Now here's the picture. And you're already expecting, this is a guy, a registered sex offender who tried to kidnap a child. This is, probably going to look like a pretty disturbing individual. But you don't even know the half of it until you see the picture. And this was posted by Right Angle News Network on X. Here it is. So you see there on the left, the district attorney, Amy Patton. So of course it's a liberal female DA. And then, not exactly the greatest thing to look at herself, and then on the left you have, or I suppose on the right from our perspective, you have the Walking Dead. You have what appears to be a zombie in an advanced state of decomposition. Like, this is the zombie that shows up in the zombie movie 5 years after the outbreak. This is like 5 or 10 years later. This is like a zombie TV series. This is season 4. Right, where the zombies are mostly decomposed. And that's this person. This is a creature from a horror film, except this is real life. And this is a registered sex offender invading school property to abduct a child. Now, obviously, it should be obvious that anyone who kidnaps or attempts to kidnap a child or commits any other kind of violent or sexual crime against a child should simply be executed. They should be charged. They should be convicted in a court of law and then lawfully executed for their crimes. Every single person convicted of any crime like this, whether the crime was attempted or successfully completed, either way, they should all just be executed. And these are people that should not be walking around on the planet anymore. They don't deserve to be. And justice and common sense calls for them to be removed from the earth permanently. Should we make an exception for the mentally incompetent? No, that is insane. The whole mentally incompetent thing makes no sense. It is incoherent. As I've argued many times. Like, first of all, by definition, anyone who would kidnap a child is not, by the standards of normal people, mentally competent. Anyone who would commit a violent crime against a child is sick in the head, by definition. No normal, mentally fit, well-adjusted person would ever do that. That's not something that a mentally fit person would do. So the whole thing where we take someone who committed this kind of crime and we got to get him psychoanalyzed. We got to get him, we have to get them tested to see if they're mentally fit. What do you mean mentally fit? Like, what is that? I don't know what that means exactly, but if you have just a normal definition of mental fitness? No, of course they're not. But we don't need any test. We have them on camera trying to abduct a child from a playground. So yeah, we already know that they're not. So should we just release all child predators back into society? Can you find one single child predator in prison right now who has what you would call a healthy mental state? Can you go and find a single child predator who you would consider to be a picture of perfect mental health? Of course not. Again, by definition. So either we should release all of them from prison on that basis, or we can do the sane and just and reasonable thing and remove all of them from society after they've been convicted of their crimes. The argument for releasing someone because they're mentally incompetent is that, well, they didn't understand that what they were doing was wrong. They didn't understand. Now, I don't buy that, first of all. I never buy that in these cases where, they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't, yeah. This guy ran away. He tried to evade the police. If he didn't know it was wrong, why did he run? That's the funny thing about all these criminals. We're always told by the courts, oh, well, they didn't understand. They didn't know. What? Like, they always run. They always fight the cops. If he really didn't know that it was wrong, then what should have happened is that he should have just been hanging out on the playground until the cops came. And then when they approached him, he should have said, oh, are you looking for me? Yeah, I tried to kidnap a child. What about it? Wait, what? Oh, we're not allowed. Really? That's wrong? I didn't know. I had no clue. Oh, you're not allowed to do that? That's what would have happened if he honestly didn't know that you're not supposed to do that. But that never happens with these allegedly incompetent criminals who supposedly don't know what they're doing. They always run. It's the same thing. They always try to get away with the crime. They try to get away with it clumsily or unconvincingly, right? Because these are stupid people, but they know what they're doing is wrong. They clearly know. But regardless, also, who cares? Even if, he didn't know. Well, okay. Like, that's all the more reason to remove him from society if he really didn't know. If you're telling me that they are so mentally incompetent that they can't stop themselves from committing unspeakable crimes, and they don't even understand that committing those crimes is wrong, then that's all the more reason to remove them from society forever, permanently. Okay, I know that these days to say that is really, that makes people very upset. It's a very scandalous notion. Are you saying we should execute people who are mentally? Yes! Yes, if they're a danger to children, if they're sex predators, if they're child predators, yes, absolutely we should. Because whatever you're like, evil is evil. First of all, so the idea that, well, he's evil, but he's also really stupid, and so we shouldn't hold him accountable for being evil. What? Why? Why shouldn't we? Since when is being really stupid an excuse for committing acts of evil? Have you noticed that there are a lot of really stupid people who don't do that? There are a lot of really stupid, low IQ people, mentally deficient people who don't go around trying to kidnap kids. Did you notice that? So how do you explain that? How do we explain the fact that there are like millions of mentally deficient people who are not a danger to kids? And there are some who are. How do you explain it? Well, because the ones who are evil. We explain it the same way we explain smart people. There are smart people who are dangerous to society and some smart people who aren't. How do you explain that? Well, because the ones who are evil and should be held accountable for it. I don't care what your IQ is. And even aside from any of that, all you're telling me is that this is someone who cannot be rehabilitated. Cannot be. And, you know, in the old days, there was no, like up until relatively recently, there was no, we got to do an IQ test. We got to get psychoanalysts. We got to get the therapists and psychologists in here. Up until very recently, it was, you committed a violent, heinous crime against a child. Yeah, we're going to hang you. We're going to convict you. We're going to take you up to the gallows. We're going to hang you. And that's it. We don't care what your IQ is. Doesn't make a difference. And, of course, we're too civilized for that now. We're too civilized and enlightened. And so the civilized and enlightened approach is to just allow child sex predators to run rampant in the street and victimize kids. That's the civilized, enlightened thing to do. All right. We're really coming out swinging after vacation. Like I said, I've been bottling it all up. It's also, you also have to understand, I'm on vacation. I don't pay attention to the news. I'm totally in a bubble. I don't look at, I have no temptation. I'm not on Twitter. I don't look at the news. I don't want to talk about it. If anyone tries to come up to me on vacation, hey, you hear what's happening in the news? No, don't talk to me about it. I don't have any take. I have no opinion. So I'm in this bubble, and then I come back, and it's like, this is what I see. It's like all Epstein, child sex predators. It's like, I don't know how else I can react to it. So, but here's a report from CNN. So we'll just do one thing that I think is maybe some good news from my perspective anyway. A report from CNN revealing that their decades of climate hysteria propaganda apparently isn't working. And here it is. Watch.
Are Americans afraid of climate change? And the answer is Americans aren't afraid of climate change. Climate activists have not successfully made the case to the American people. I want you to take a look here. Greatly worried about climate change. We have data going all the way back since 1989. Look at that. It was 35%. 2000, 40%. 2020, 46%. And 2025, 40%, which is the exact same percentage as back in 2000. Despite all of these horrible weather events, the percentage of Americans who are greatly worried about climate change has stayed pretty gosh darn consistent, which kind of boggles the mind a little bit. Granted, everything that we see on our television screens, our computer screens, the hurricanes, tornadoes, the flooding, but yet greatly worried about climate change, 40% in 2025, the exact same percentage as back in 2000.
So there we go. It's been pretty dark. So we lighten the mood with some encouraging news. And this is very encouraging, and we don't really talk about the collapse of the climate change narrative the same way that we talk about the collapse of the LGBT narrative or the BLM narrative. All three of these have caved in on themselves at basically the same time because they're part of the same structure. They're basically rooms inside the same building. But we don't talk enough about the climate change room collapsing. And I think it's because it's just like a boring topic, which it is. And yet it is remarkable that there's been this full court press, this overwhelming push by all of the most powerful institutions in our culture for decades now to get us to buy into this nonsense, to get us to panic over climate change. And at the end of all that, even by CNN's own estimation, they've convinced by population percentage, no one. As many people are worried about climate change today as were worried about it 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And think about all that's happened since then. Al Gore, and the inconvenient truth, AOC pushing the Green New Deal, Greta Thunberg, on and on and on, right? Countless examples of climate change propaganda in movies and shows and music, entire blockbuster films centered around this idea. They've flooded the zone with it. They've shoved it in our faces everywhere. They tried to indoctrinate. This is all over the schools. They've indoctrinated or tried to multiple generations of kids into this idea. And yet here we are, and still basically nobody cares. And, you got to really think about this. The left-wing climate change propaganda has basically failed. LGBT propaganda succeeded for a while, but it's now failing. BLM fell apart. Gun control propaganda has always failed. That has never worked in this country. They haven't made it anywhere on that. There are certainly gun grabbers out there and people who believe in gun control, but They have not convinced the majority of Americans on that at all. So you go down the list and you find that leftism actually fails to capture the hearts and minds of the population. And yet there's no doubt that they control the culture. There's no doubt that we currently live in a society largely shaped by leftist ideas, by leftist ideology. And when you look at any one of these issues individually, kind of in the micro, it seems like they haven't convinced anyone of anything. And yet they also still seem to be in control of the culture. How is that? Well, because it's a matter of control. It's because they control the institutions. It's a top-down thing. They don't make a compelling case. They don't speak to the heart or the mind or the soul of a person, but they control the institutions. So they can force, their failing ideology on us. It's like living in a country with a dictator who's despised by the people and nobody likes him, nobody believes in him, but he has control. And the only answer is to topple him and seize back control. In our case, it's the same thing, to seize back the institutions. It's the only way to really be rid of this cancerous force. So that was my version of a positive story. And it ends with getting rid of cancerous forces. So it always comes back to that. Being a husband, father, and host of my own show means life never slows down. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every single day. Sounds miserable and time consuming. And, I don't want to have to keep up with that. I'd rather go get something deep fried and unhealthy on occasion. But with Balance of Nature fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables every day with 31 different whole fruit and vegetable ingredients. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, they freeze dry them, turn them into a powder, and then put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and your body knows what to do with them. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Walsh for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Walsh. Everyone's still talking about our latest addition to the Daily Wire, Isabel Brown. Her brand new show premieres this fall exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. But don't worry, there's plenty more on the way as we celebrate a decade of Daily Wire. Yes, we're celebrating our victories because who doesn't love winning? But we're also fighting harder than ever. The left wants to silence your voice. We make it louder. They want open borders. We demand law and order. They want drag shows for kids. We make documentaries that expose the truth. They cancel. We create. This is the time to be a part of the community that fights back and wins. Go to dailywireplus.com and join the fight today. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. For our first daily cancellation, as I return from my years-long vacation, I must cancel Chip and Joanna Gaines. Those are the two former HGTV personalities who achieved world renown for remodeling houses. And by remodeling, I mean painting everything white, throwing some shiplap up on the walls and calling it a day. And now they own a company called Magnolia, which sells home decor, among other things. You can go to their website, or I think they're at Target, and you can buy some great Magnolia decor, like a rusty tin bucket that you place next to your fireplace or whatever for some reason, or a sign that you hang in your kitchen that says kitchen. The great news is that you can also buy both in a bundle deal at a discounted price of just $735.99. Aside from being purveyors of expensive tin buckets, Chip and Joanna are also still in the TV business with their own production company. And more importantly, Chip and Joanna are, they say, Christians. Indeed, their supposed Christian identity has been a very prominent part of their brand, and it's why they've amassed a loyal fan base that consists almost entirely of Christian stay-at-home moms between the ages of like 32 and 55. My wife is one of them, or was. And that's what made it so confusing for their fans when it was announced recently that they have produced a new reality show for HBO Max called Back to the Frontier. The show takes three families, dresses them like 19th century pioneers, and challenges them to live for 8 weeks as if they're cattle ranchers somewhere out on the Great Plains in 1881. Now, so far, based on the premise, there's no reason to object, except for the fact that the show is certainly going to be almost entirely fake. But that's not what has upset their Christian fan base. The problem, the thing that has got Christians riled up, and rightfully so, should be immediately obvious when you see the trailer for the show. Here it is.
Going back to the frontier is going to be life-changing for all of us.
We want to go backward so that we can go forward in the right direction.
Makeup and jewelry removal there, please. Lip gloss at least, right? Everything must go.
No.
I want my kids to learn humility and hard work.
All of your tech in here, please.
Are you guys ready to get rid of these devices?
No.
No?
I'm in a loss for words that I have to give up all of this to go back to the frontier.
Welcome to your frontier.
Oh my God.
This is really it. This is all we have.
There's only 2 beds. I'm not sharing a bed.
Why are we complaining about this?
I didn't anticipate it would be this difficult just to find 3 vegetables for dinner tonight.
We sit on that?
It's the 1800s.
Well, there's the problem. Not the black family, but the one we saw right before them. That was the 2 men and 2 kids. That's a gay male couple with 2 children. 2 boys specifically, because gay couples almost always seem to adopt boys. I mean, that's not something we're supposed to notice or ask any questions about. They certainly don't want you to think about that while you're watching Back to the Frontier, a show that might more rightly be called DEI on the Frontier. Although, of course, if this was actually true to life, the season would be 1 episode long, and the episode would last about 5 minutes before everyone dies, because that's what would actually happen if you attempted to apply DEI principles to the American frontier. But this is not true to life, and more to the point, as it concerns the Christian couple that produced this nonsense, it is not true to the Bible. The point of including this couple is very explicitly to promote and normalize same-sex, quote-unquote, marriage and same-sex, quote-unquote, families. The gay couple, in an interview, said that explicitly recently. Listen.
How did you hear about this opportunity? Who was more invested from the jump? Who took more convincing? I want to know that whole story.
When I first saw the flyer on social media, there was a gay couple on the flyer. And so that initially kind of sparked my interest, and I was very much intrigued in learning more about the show and kind of what that experience was going to be. I'm super honored that when they were choosing 3 modern day families, that they did choose a same-sex couple as a modern day family, because we are, and like we are your neighbors and your coworkers. And so it was this great, amazing opportunity to normalize same-sex couples and same-sex families.
Now, why would a wholesome Christian couple provide this kind of exciting opportunity to a gay couple? The Bible, which all Christians must by definition affirm as the inerrant word of God, makes itself very clear on this topic, no matter how you personally feel about it. The homosexual act is condemned in Romans 1:26, 1 Corinthians 6:9 through 10, as disordered, immoral, depraved, shameful. Several other verses across the Old and New Testaments say the same. The book of Genesis prescribes that a man must leave his parents and become one flesh with his wife. It is all exceedingly incontrovertibly clear, which is why Christian moral teaching on the subject of homosexual relationships has been unanimous for 2,000 years. And this is something that should matter to Chip and Joanna, since they claim to be Christians. And even if they weren't Christians, there would still be plenty of reasons to object to 2 men adopting children and to a show that promotes that kind of arrangement. Every child needs and deserves, and naturally has, a mother and a father. The mother and father united in marriage are the 2 pillars that the institution of the family is built upon. To intentionally deprive a child of one of these pillars is an act of unspeakable evil. And this used to be widely understood, which is why gay adoption was illegal nearly everywhere in the country up until just a few years ago. And it was legalized not for the sake of the children, not because it was somehow discovered that it's good or healthy for them to be adopted by same-sex couples, but for the sake of the same-sex couples themselves. It was decided that couples who, by their nature, cannot conceive children still somehow have a right to children, which is a concept that any rational person, even one who isn't Christian, should be able to see as the abhorrent nonsense that it is. But Chip and Joanna Gaines are apparently not rational or Christian. And if there's any doubt about that, Chip alleviated it with his response to his Christian fans who've expressed concern about his decision to promote gay couples and gay adoption. On Sunday, Chip posted this to X, quote, "Talk, ask questions, listen, maybe even learn. Too much to ask of modern American Christian culture. Judge first, understand later / never. It's a sad Sunday when non-believers have never been confronted with hate or vitriol until they're introduced to a modern American Christian." Now, no surprise there. A fake Christian in the public eye is called out for promoting, sin and worldliness, and he responds by accusing his critics of being judgmental bigots. We've seen this play about 1,000 times before. But I have to wonder, what does Chip want us to learn exactly? And he says we need to learn. Okay, well, tell us, Chip. Do you want to teach us about how the Bible actually supports the idea that men can get married and have children? Do you want to show us how Christian teaching through the centuries has actually supported your view, but billions of Christians throughout history just couldn't see it? Is that it? Has the pro-gay adoption message in Scripture been hidden in code this whole time? Have we had to wait for 2,000 years until a couple of HGTV hosts could come along and reveal it to us? Is there something in the book of Revelation about how two people named Chip and Joanna, shiplap enthusiasts, would come along 20 centuries after Christ to completely upend everything we thought we knew about the fundamental moral teachings of the faith? Is that it, Chip? If so, then please teach us. Tell us what you know. Explain exactly how you harmonize your pro-gay marriage and gay adoption views with the Bible. I'd be fascinated to hear. But I doubt you'll ever explain it because you know that you can't. Instead, you'll regurgitate the weak liberal platitudes that you hear from your pastor at whatever pseudo-Christian megachurch you attend and continue raking in your millions from the very people who you have now made it clear don't respect and who you don't even like. And that is why you and your wife are both today, I'm afraid, canceled. And that'll do it for the show today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
New metadata revealed that Jeffrey Epstein's cell footage was edited. Gee, you don't say. Top Trump officials might go down over the debacle, and an LGBT LMNOP activist gets caught doing exactly what you would expect. Check it out on The Michael Walsh Show.